This video is brought to you by Incogni. Stick around to hear more about the special offer they are providing to the entire upper echelon community. YouTube loves advertisements. To an extent, I do too. That's how I get paid. But YouTube really loves ads, to a degree where the amount that they insert into an average video, if you have the automatic ad slots button checked off in your monetization tab, is frankly insane. They'll sometimes put dozens of ad breaks in a relatively short time frame, and they don't stop there either. In 2024, they introduced advertisements when viewers pause the videos. They've implemented numerous different systems designed to make ad blocking impossible, or deny users that try to do it from watching videos entirely. They've upped the amount of ads that get shown to premium light customers, and who knows what else in the background. There's a never-ending struggle between YouTube and ad blocking software companies, which I've talked about before on the channel. But today I want to look at a situation of collateral damage. The struggle that takes place between YouTube and ad blockers is relatively well known. Most of the time, it doesn't really affect the creators or the viewers, at least not the ones that put up with the ads. And even the ones that don't, there's typically a workaround within days of any new prevention effort by YouTube, sometimes even hours. The battle takes place behind the scenes for the most part. But recently, there was an example of how that battle can actually spill over into the everyday lives of the users, and it caused a little bit of drama. In the first half of August 2025, right around the 12th to be precise, something changed. At the time, nobody precisely knew what had changed, but the average view count for an incredibly large number of channels fell dramatically, all at the same exact time. On a personal note, I did notice it myself, wondered what was happening, I guess, but I usually tend to gravitate towards the idea that if there's a problem with viewership, it's because of what the content is. Maybe I chose bad topics people don't care about. Maybe I happened to put a bad title, a bad thumbnail, who knows, anything. There's a million possible reasons. But typically I find myself thinking, it's probably something to do with me. That's precisely what I thought this time as well, in August, and because of that assumption, I never really dug any deeper. Thankfully, however, others did. While I may have assumed that the problem was somehow my fault, the statistical reality was that there was a very large and sudden decrease in views across an enormous number of channels, which led to a good number of people running experiments, investigating, and searching for answers. I want to make something very clear right now. A sudden and dramatic decline in viewership that doesn't have any immediately explainable reason is alarming for a lot of people. In this case, ad revenue didn't seem to be affected, which is good, but creators on this platform really have no concrete way of understanding how the algorithm works, and watching a sudden decrease in metrics like that can be extremely scary for them. For me, it's a little bit different. I'm one of a rare few who have the ability to do this full time, which I'm incredibly grateful for, by the way. And I've also diversified my income over the past 8 years, making it easier for me to withstand issues like that. But for smaller channels who are still in the phase of building up their audience, it can have all sorts of negative consequences. An easy example would be sponsorships, like how this video has a sponsor, which I'm about to talk about. But one of the ways that you secure those contracts is by having appealing viewership metrics for the brand. So if there's suddenly a 30 or 40% decrease in views, it changes things. See, I have long-term contracts. I hunt for that deliberately, which again is something I worked up to over the years, and I partner with brands that support me through the ups and downs of volatile viewership metrics. But smaller channels who don't have those relationships that they've forged again over years and haven't built up to that size typically run short-term or one-off deals, which can be dramatically affected by a temporary loss of that nature. My point here is that while I didn't personally think of this as any sort of make or break moment for the channel, other people did, and they weren't wrong for doing so, which is where we get to a couple of other creators who took it upon themselves to talk about things. Off topic, but certainly on topic if you think about the general vibe of the channel, everything you do online at least, but also sort of in the world itself now with the sheer amount of cameras being implemented everywhere, but anyway, everything you do online is tracked, except companies keeping or selling your information does not benefit you. Incogni, today's video sponsor, for anyone who wants to cut back on the number of places where your data is stored, sold, and displayed, which can result in scams, theft of identity, harassment, etc., among other dangers like data breaches, Incogni is here to help. It's a simple process. Sign up for the website, give them legal permission to work on your behalf, and then let them know what they'll be having removed. After that, they contact data brokers, of which there are hundreds, by the way, and they do it. Additionally, at the core of the service now, they have an important feature. Everyone's probably Googled their own name before, but if you do and you find your information on a website where it shouldn't be, you can submit the URL to Incogni, and they'll attempt to get the info taken down for you. This is something that people can attempt to do on their own, contacting the legal departments for these companies and then fighting objections all along the way, but pressuring them into taking things down can be a near impossible task. Incogni now offers you the option of finding where your information is displayed and then submitting the link to them, after which they execute the tedious process with streamlined resources to force results, which means less ability for the people you don't want finding you to actually find you. Adding this in spontaneously post-script, I guess. Did you know that health insurance companies can buy data about you and then raise your premiums or your rates based on the data that they buy? Because I certainly didn't know that. And I guess it's just another motivational factor behind wanting to remove your information from various different online websites if you can. So yeah, that was something new. I was not aware of this. Using the link down below in the description and code Echelon at checkout, you can get 60% off an annual subscription to Incogni. Again, link down below and promo code Echelon for 60% off your subscription. Big thank you to Incogni for sponsoring the channel. Okay, back to it. This is Josh Strife Hayes. Genuinely some of the best gaming content that you'll find on the entire platform. And about a week ago, he dropped a video showcasing what he believed to be proof that viewership metrics on YouTube had somehow changed, which is why so many different creators were experiencing large pattern shifts. In that video, he explains how to check for yourself and outlines that desktop views had largely disappeared, leaving other platforms like mobile or TV relatively untouched. He offers a very clear description of how to check for yourself to see if it happened to you. And when I pulled up my own analytics, surprise, surprise, there it was. A lot of people looking at this graph right now may not see what I'm talking about. It's rather confusing, so I'll use a couple more specific examples where you can see that videos posted after August 12th had a massive decrease in the number of desktop and computer views. Visually represented as the green line in this case, computer views were dramatically lower, inexplicably, on all uploads after the 12th of August, whereas on uploads before that point in time, they looked like this. It wasn't necessarily obvious why this was happening, not yet anyway, but it was abundantly clear that something was happening, which is where we get to the next creator, Spiffing Brit. Spiffing Brit has a massive audience on the platform and decided to post a video basically saying that everyone else was wrong about this. He debunks a few totally unrelated concepts, focusing on certain points made by Linus Tech Tips, among others, but completely ignoring the more concrete data-driven argument that desktop views were unexplainably missing. Also of note, he changed the video title numerous times, starting with, "Is YouTube really hiding videos now?" Then switching it over to, "You are wrong about the YouTube algorithm," which apparently wasn't even good enough, later changing it to, "Why everyone is wrong about the YouTube algorithm," and then lastly, "What is happening to YouTube?" Because as it would turn out, he was wrong, not everyone else. The crux of his argument was basically skill issue. The audience doesn't want to watch you, they're going back to school, seasonal changes, effectively hand-waving the entire thing away as non-existent, because people didn't understand that this time of year it always happens, which is categorically untrue. This doesn't happen ever. The relationship between desktop views and mobile views has never done this before, to such a degree, and the problem was visible across an indisputably large sample of creators, making it obvious that something had indeed changed on the back end. But now we get to the question of what. What had changed and caused this? Answer, most likely, it would seem, is a specific list of domain names in something called Easy Privacy, which is called on as a default by major ad blocking extensions, such as uBlock Origin in this case, which then prevented view telemetry data from being registered on YouTube's side. I don't even fully understand the intricate details of this, by the way, but the simple version is that this particular domain being interfered with, which was added to the list on August 11th and merged into uBlock on August 12th, this particular domain caused a problem logging views, and Josh Strife Hayes was pretty much spot on with his follow-up video deducing adblock as the potential culprit. To make something abundantly clear right now, I have no issue with people using adblock. Browsing the internet without one is a pretty horrible experience lately, but as YouTube and ad blockers battle it out in the background, having such a noticeable decrease in viewership with untold consequences in the algorithm afterwards, as it maybe decides that your content isn't as popular, people don't like it as much, and thereby maybe it gets shown less and less, having such a noticeable decrease really sucks to see as a side effect. Furthermore, having a very large and respected voice in the community basically gaslight the shit out of you, saying that you just don't understand how seasons work, that's an extra kick in the nuts for a lot of creators. And there's also questions that need to be asked about revenue, which don't explicitly connect back to advertisements. Once again, I am totally fine with people using adblock, I actively encourage it, in fact, or buying YouTube Premium to see less ads or whatever you choose to do. But having this critical domain added to a broader list that gets used by multiple ad blocking extensions raises a particular question, which I haven't seen answered or addressed anywhere yet. What would happen for premium users, who don't even see ads to begin with, if they also had uBlock Origin installed? Seeing as the ad blocking software was unintentionally removing authentic views, and also seeing as views from premium subscribers are actually far more lucrative for creators than regular advertisements, Would this change be having additional side effects across multiple aspects of the channel? I honestly don't know, but the reality is that what we saw for a few weeks, the problem seems to be getting fixed now, but what we saw for a few weeks was collateral damage in a war between Adblock and YouTube. I do think it's important to include this part, even though it happened after the community had basically figured everything out on their own. But YouTube themselves finally came out with a statement a few days ago saying, quote, "Viewers using ad blockers and other content blocking tools. Ad blockers and other extensions can impact the accuracy of reported view counts. Channels whose audiences include a higher proportion of users utilizing such tools may see fluctuations in traffic related to updates to these tools." End quote. And even though that statement itself wasn't the main point of the blog post, it certainly acknowledged that yes, views had dropped, yes, they were desktop views as a result of ad blocking software, and no, YouTube wasn't directly responsible for this time. But the idea that the entire thing was just a seasonal discrepancy was asinine. What we saw happen in super broad terms was a significant drop in views, after which people began speculating. One of the first, more popular speculations was that a new thing called YouTube restricted mode was somehow responsible, which would mean that AI moderation tools were shutting off access to certain videos in people's feeds. But that knee-jerk initial guesswork was quickly replaced by much more data-driven arguments, ultimately landing on the realization that ad blockers had interfered with view tracking. Channels that primarily cater to a younger audience weren't really as affected, because their viewers use phones more than anything else, which you don't really use adblock on. And that muddied the waters on whether or not there was a real issue in the first place. But I find myself thinking that this isn't really a one-off type problem, is it? YouTube is now so aggressive with their advertising, you'll sometimes see multi-minute unskippable ads literally targeted to the most engaging part of the video. That's not a joke, by the way. YouTube has this thing called peak points, which they unveiled in May of 2025, where Gemini, their AI model, identifies the moments of a video where the audience is most engaged and then serves them ads at like the climax of when they're paying attention, which probably means right before the exciting thing actually happens that you watched the video in the first place to see. It's diabolical, honestly it is. And that kind of tactic, combined with a perpetual war against ad blockers, is like escalating the arms race with new types of missiles. Ad blockers are not going to stop looking for ways to get around this, nor should they. And as YouTube implements more and more invasive techniques, ad blockers are forced to use harsher and harsher responses, which hopefully doesn't negatively impact average creators, but it certainly can, as we've seen. And I have a sneaking suspicion this won't be the last time something like this happens. Anyway, YouTube is in a perpetual war against ad blockers. That war had an isolated moment of collateral damage. No, it was definitively not a seasonal trend. No, it was not the fault of the creators themselves. And thankfully, it didn't noticeably impact revenue for most people in terms of raw AdSense. Not that AdSense is even really a concern for most viewers. But the story of the day is that the back and forth between YouTube and third-party extensions to block ads is in full swing right now, which I guess I should be paying a lot more attention to, because when all this first went down, I had literally zero clue what was going on, which is probably a bad thing. I should be watching this kind of stuff and looking for it much more carefully and closely. Big shout out to Josh Strife Hayes, who was well ahead of the curve on this. That's it. I know not everyone's going to be interested in this kind of topic, but I was, so here's the video. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below, a special VPN deal, locals and Patreon, channel memberships. I would actually happily take the channel completely ad-free if I could pay my bills through Patreon subscriptions alone, but that's not currently the case, so I don't know. Maybe I'll think about that more and do something official later on about it, not sure. Anyway, thank you all for watching, question everything, and have a nice night.